The good news is a jihadist and his young bride have come to their senses and turned their backs on the murderous medieval death cult. The bad news is they want to come back from Syria to the UK. Well, presumably they've tired of days at the beach being spoiled by mass beheadings or the continual cries of rape victims as their former ISIS pals instill discipline in rebellious areas. Sadly, though, for Stefan Aristidou and his wife Kolsoma Begum, their bid to return to the UK was thwarted by Turkish authorities, who have detained them. Now, no one has an accurate figure as to how many former ISIS fanatics want to come home, but we're definitely talking in the hundreds. Our response has to be, in this case, a resolute no. Turkish police want to jail Stefan for 15 years. I say, let them.
So the thing about this, Nick, is that I think we want the same thing. I think everybody here wants the same thing. We would all like to see the end of ISIS. We're all absolutely horrified and appalled by them, disturbed by the fact that British people are going to join them in any way. And we want to make sure that the UK is safe and that people who've been radicalised and are dangerous are not coming back here to radicalise others and plan attacks, right? So we want the same things. Where I differ with you is that I think what you're advocating will actually go against those ends. So I think it's more dangerous to send a message to people who've gone to fight that they can't come back, that they have nothing to lose, that we leave them at large wherever they are, committing potentially even more atrocities. I believe that if they come back and are processed by the criminal justice system, monitored by the intelligence agencies, which, by the way, have sweeping new powers, not all of which I personally agree with, but you can't deny the fact that they have more powers than ever to monitor, keep them under surveillance, put restrictions on their movement, force them to undergo de-radicalisation. That was the point of our counter-terrorism laws. So if you have any confidence in our criminal justice system, in our security services and our police, then you have to accept that as British citizens they should come back and be dealt with properly.
I have tremendous faith and confidence, and I give thanks on a daily basis for the men and women who are out there on the front line. I don't think we realise until cases come to court just how fantastically fortunate we are to have them. But as we said in Carol's debate earlier, we know that the police are under incredible pressures. The idea that we would have round-the-clock monitoring... I was once told by a senior police officer, I think it takes something like 30 police officers to monitor one person one day without them ever knowing, because you have to have guys standing by with motorbikes in case they suddenly take... We simply haven't got it. I'm sorry, this isn't like a bad decision. This isn't like he went on the wrong holiday with some mates and got a little bit drunk. He signed up to, as I said earlier, a murderous death cult. With that decision comes responsibilities. You ain't coming back.
I was just going to say, I have sympathy with girls of 14, 15 going off to join ISIS because they're young and they've been groomed online, all the rest of it. But I have no sympathy with... They were 20 at the time, she was 20, he was 21 at the time. At that point, they would have seen the beheadings on British television. They would have seen men being burned in cages. They can't pretend they didn't know what ISIS was about or what it was doing. So when you make a decision like that, when you live in a country like this country, which is the most amazing country to live in, when you go somewhere that wants to destroy this country and kill people when you want to come back, no, you can't. Take responsibility for what you do. And I think you were talking about messages being sent out. If you want to send a message to people in this country who are thinking of going to Syria to train, the message is you go, you don't come back. I think that's a much more powerful message than having people back. Because although this guy says they want to come back and the only reason they wanted to go live there was because of Sharia law, he could have done that here. And who's to say he's not radicalised even now? You know, he's saying he's not. He's saying he wants to live in peace, the guy.
Yeah.
Who's saying he's not radicalised?
I'm suggesting has a free pass.
Doesn't this couple claim in their defence that they didn't want to join ISIS, they wanted only to live under Sharia law?
Yeah,
and
well,
for the moment, this country, when I last looked, isn't under Sharia law, although Carol often makes us all terrified. It's on its way, coming down the pike. So I think, the rule of law should apply to all British citizens, whether they have been guilty or found guilty of terrorist offences or not. Why don't we just bring them back, let them serve their time, de-radicalise them in prison, drain them of all the intelligence, and then get them to go out and de-radicalise other potential recruits to the ISIS cause. Why? Cheaper too.
I'll tell you in a minute.
What I don't understand is what happens to them if you don't... I mean, where would you leave
15
them?
years in a Turkish jail.
But that's if there'll be others who will come back who won't be charged by the Turks, right? Yeah. What happens to them? They're born here, most of them.
Yes.
They're British citizens. do they not have a right to come back anyway?
No, not if we can prove that they're members of ISIS.
So where do they? So where do they go?
Let them stay in Syria. Stay in Syria, like I care. Let's actually because the man isn't here to defend himself, but let's hear him talking with Sky News' Stuart Ramsey earlier.
And if they failed that camp, what would happen to them then?
There's no failing, you know. There's no escaping. You're just. You can't fail it. It's not a test. It's just like a prison. At the end of the day, like, I'm just trying to get my life back. If it so be it that I have to go to prison in order to do that, and you know, I'm prepared to do that. Like I said, I'm not here to harm anybody. I'm just here to look after my family and live my life.
I'm not saying that man because he's not here to defend himself, but ISIS terrorists would slit your throats, and those are the ones you love as soon as look at you. That is the reality. I don't want them in this country, Rachel.
I think the more publicity this story is given across the world, the better. Because what that man's saying, he referred to something called the camp, which is the camp of repentance, which is not where I'm going for having joined the Lib Dems. No, it is. Camp of repentance. For 2 weeks, Boris says, 2 weeks, and then I want you to retract. No, but it just goes to show that, you know, if you join ISIS, you are signing your own death warrant, basically, aren't you? So the more people are aware of this, the better. So bring them back into the country and spread the word.
You say de-radicalise. It's not like turning a switch. You say bring them back.
Radicalisation is like turning a switch.
No, but to de-radicalise, it's not like, oh, right, we'll turn him off, he's OK again.
But we don't know even what this guy has done, because he has been detained and been arrested on terrorist offences. So he may have killed people already. And if he has, why would we want him back here?
The problem I have with this, you know, it's not ideal. Nobody's happy about the fact that British people are going and doing this. But the point is, if they're British, it's not optional that they're British or not.
But the British went away to train to kill British people.
You're also presenting it as it's kind of either you leave them where they are or you give them a clean pass and they get to come home and have a lovely time. And let's just listen to what the woman's father had to say about what he thought the treatment should be for his own daughter. He said, I would give them a lesson so that they can realise their mistakes. They have to face the law. The law will decide what punishment to give them. But as a father, I'm saying everybody deserves a second chance. Now, whether you agree with that or not, this country is
what he also said was maybe they've learned their lesson. Well, maybe it isn't good enough. Maybe to get them back here, they've learned their lesson isn't good enough.
That's where our criminal justice system comes in, Carol. You know, this is a country characterised by the rule of law. We have rules, we have a system. And this is exactly what groups like ISIS want to destroy. And when you pander to this kind of reactionary feeling that you could just kind of leave them in Turkey and throw away the key.
We're not the reactionaries.
You're actually furthering that agenda.
They're the reactionaries, Afua, not us. They went to train to kill us.
And we're nothing like that.
Isn't the real problem is that none of us understand why they would have gone in the first place? Right. It's so alien to what we are. And therefore, I couldn't sit here and say they should not come back under any circumstances because I just don't understand. I don't understand them enough. But the one thing you do know is people who have been radicalised and have changed and can go back and talk to other people are incredibly valuable. Who can go and talk to other kids, go and talk to schools. But the trouble is, it's too difficult because as I've watched them go, I've thought, I don't understand this at all. Surely your point, Carol, surely they've seen what's on the news. They've seen what's happening.
I don't really agree with you, Greg. I mean, I obviously can't relate to going and wanting to be part of ISIS, but I've spoken to quite a few of these people and met them, and they're not aliens. You know, they're human beings. They're often young. They've been groomed, a lot like people get groomed for sexual abuse or paedophilia or other things that are very difficult to understand.
They're too old to be
Please,
okay.
They're not victims.
I'm not saying they're victims. I'm not defending them.
I'm
saying they are human beings. It's possible to create a kind of explanation, not a defence, not an excuse, but it is possible to understand how this has happened, and it's also therefore possible to counter it.